The chair now recognizes Brent Leatherwood, president of the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission, to come and bring a report.
Promote a culture of life.
Protect a free church and a free state.
Champion God's good design.
Honor all people as made in God's image.
The Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission exists to bring hope to the public square as we assist your church in applying God's word to cultural issues and advocate on behalf of Southern Baptists in 4 areas: life, religious liberty, marriage and family, and human dignity.
So we invite you to partner with us, whether in our nation's capital or in our neighborhoods, as together we bring hope to the public square. Learn more at erlc.com.
Thank you for that introduction, Mr. President. It's always good to be up here with you. Fellow Baptists, this is my 3rd address that I've had the privilege of making before you at one of these gatherings. In each of those previous moments that we've been together, I recall with fondness what it revealed, the strength of our voice as a convention, a strength that stems from the unceasing cooperation of our churches, a cooperation that ensures the hope of the gospel may be brought to the uttermost ends of the earth, which includes the public square. And I don't say that lightly. One only need to read the newspaper, turn on the television, open social media to see the vitriol, the despair, and the conspiracies as proof that the light of the world is needed as much in the public arena as it is on the international mission field. And these gatherings demonstrate how deeply we understand that. They consistently show how unified this far-reaching and diverse collection of churches is about the essentials, be it theology or, for our purposes, public policy. And this matters a great deal. Some examples leap to mind from the last few years. You've made it clear in previous resolutions that opposing the spread of transgender ideologies that are harming children and vulnerable individuals must be a priority. Because of that clear stand, we, the ERLC, were able to stop the advance of the misnamed Equality Act in Congress that sought to impose extreme concepts of gender and steamroll religious liberty protections. You spoke, we acted. At last year's meeting, in a survey of messengers, you told us that the issues of greatest concern to your churches were questions about culture's ever-changing definition of sexuality and this November's upcoming election. Because of that, we convened experts and ethicists and church leaders to create resources that can aid your ministry. I hope that all of you by now have received The Nations Belong to God, a Christian guide to political engagement, and God's Good Design, a practical guide for answering gender confusion, questions that culture poses to us. Again, you spoke, we acted. You see, the work of this commission is not just rooted in this convention, it is responsive to this convention. As such, last fall, immediately after the heinous attack by Hamas terrorists against the nation of Israel, we jumped into action alongside our dear friend Dan Darling from our sister entity, Southwestern Seminary, to create an evangelical statement of support for Israel. This document, signed by thousands of Southern Baptist pastors and leaders, was steadfast in displaying our belief that Israel not only has a right to defend itself, but a right to exist. We delivered this document to Congress, the White House, and the United Nations. This convention has never wavered from its support of Israel, and I am grateful for that. And you confirmed that once more. You confirmed it here again. Whenever vulnerable lives or religious freedom is imperiled by tyrants or terrorists, this convention moves. Because of that, this year the ERLC publicly supported critical legislation aiding Ukraine, Israel, and Taiwan in their heroic efforts to stand strong against evildoers. In doing so, we were able to be alongside fellow Baptists doing difficult ministry in Ukraine, as well as the Southern Baptist Speaker of our U.S. House, Speaker Mike Johnson, as he made the morally clear and correct choice to move that law forward. Closer to home, even though we live in a post-Roe world, it is clear the abortion industry's appetite for death has not abated. That cruel reality led us to support a brief before the U.S. Supreme Court laying out the dangers posed by chemical abortion drugs, the ones that take preborn lives and are targeted at vulnerable mothers. And I've said it before, and it bears repeating again. If we are to establish a true culture of life, lawmakers must stop those who profit from a culture of death. The abortionists, the abortion mills, and the abortion chemical manufacturers. To support those mothers targeted by Planned Parenthood and others, our Psalm 139 project continues to serve. This year, 12 new life-saving ultrasound machines were placed in locations near and far, including our second ever international placement in Southeast Asia through a partnership with the IMB. Beyond the issue of life, we have continued efforts to help the vulnerable elsewhere. Last year alone, the Biden administration sought to change or impose rules about a host of issues ranging from abortion, tourism, to conscience rights, to women's sports. In each of these 19 instances, the ERLC filed official public opinions registering our vehement disagreement with these actions. To put that into perspective, we historically have only had to file 2 or 3 per year. We have a new state policy agenda that was released in coordination with our state execs, highlighting helpful proposals about life, stopping harmful gender practices, and protecting religious freedom. And we continue to address the sexual abuse catastrophe that plagues our convention by providing $250,000 to the ARITF. After yesterday's vote, we will now work with the EC to further implement this work handed over by the task force. In all of these matters, you have spoken, we have acted, and that will guide our work moving forward. We've engaged our state convention partners about resources and initiatives for this November's election because, as you can see on the map before you, there is an incredible opportunity for Baptists to go to the polls, stop abortion, and protect life. Let me conclude these remarks where I began. In all this work, in all that we strive to do, we do so without malice or despair, but instead with hope. A few weeks ago, a dear friend called me in tears. She and her husband were talking about how fearful it is to be Jewish in America right now. Anti-Semitic protests on campuses, Nazi sympathizing all over social media, actual attacks on Israel. But the tears she was crying were tears of joy, for she had read about the efforts of this commission on behalf of this convention to oppose the awful actions of hateful activists and Hamas sympathizers. You give us hope, she said. And in a fractured moment, in a fallen world, I can think of no better endorsement for our work. Mr. President, I'd be happy to take questions.
Microphone 10A, please state your name, your church, and your question.
Thank you, Mr. President. Brian Gunter, senior pastor from First Baptist Church in Livingston, and of course, a messenger. Mr. Leatherwood, since Roe v. Wade was overturned 2 years ago,
And I'm sorry to interrupt you. Livingston, where, can you give the state, please?
Louisiana.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Since Roe v. Wade was overturned 2 years ago, self-managed abortions have skyrocketed because the law in every state grants legal immunity to any pregnant woman who murders her preborn child. In the last 2 years, you've continually opposed the efforts of abortion abolitionists to pass a bill of equal protection for preborn children, which would prohibit anyone from murdering a preborn child. Now, even if we could, by some miracle, stop the flow of millions of abortion pills across our nation, there's still many other ways that a pregnant woman can induce her own abortion. So this is my question. Since you believe that mothers who willfully abort their preborn children should have legal immunity to do so, how will we ever end abortion without making abortion illegal for women?
Brian, thank you so much for that question. I think this is maybe the third year in a row you and I have had the opportunity to dialogue about this, and I'm thankful for that. And as a matter of fact, I know right at the beginning of this annual meeting, you and I were able to spend about 30 minutes in the back of the room talking through some of your concerns. But thank you again for bringing them here, because this is a conversation that I think we need to have, and I want to make sure that I am clear on where we stand, because as my communications director, Julie Masson, often reminds me, clarity is kindness. June 22nd, 2022. Does anybody know what happened that day? That was the day that we got the Dobbs decision. And that was the day that abortion was outlawed in the state of Louisiana. It was outlawed in the state of Louisiana because of something known as a trigger law that said if Roe v. Wade was ever to be overturned, abortion in the state of Louisiana would be outlawed. I am thankful for legislators who had the foresight to create legislation and put it into law just like that. That happened in several states, and Louisiana is one of them. So, to your direct question, Brian, the pro-life movement, the ERLC, the Southern Baptist Convention has never supported the criminalization of women. We have always supported outlawing abortion. And as you and I discussed in the back of this room, we want to get to that day. You and I have the same objective, where abortion is no more. So you and me, brother, we are there. We simply have a slightly different opinion about how to get there. But I would suggest that if we take your path, we actually will move that day further away. And in the process, we will lose more lives. The Dobbs decision was initiated by a law that was an incremental law, and that's where I am. I'm an incrementalist. There are some extreme voices, not you, Brian, I'm not accusing you of this. There are some voices out there that have said something to the effect of, dig a hole for a mother and throw her in it. That's not helpful rhetoric. That's extreme rhetoric, and we all should reject that if we ever hear that. No, instead, the way is to win step by step, piece by piece, save as many lives as you can until, Brian, you and I get to that day where abortion is no more in our country.
Time for questions has expired. Thank you to the Ethics and Religious Liberty Commission